Okay, my friends, this is Jerry Blevins here, and this is a kind of sort of a shout out, you might say, to the Blackfeet people and to the supporters of the Blackfeet who are fighting against the Water Compact. I want to do a 2020 hindsight kind of perspective on this uh, because as I look back at it, I saw a lot of things that needed to be that I think should be brought out or and um, need to be focused on. So I want to use a little bit of 2020 hindsight here, and as you know, I want to look back at the Water Compact and the new Constitution. And I don't want to do it to analyze the documents because we've done that already. But I want to do a little bit deeper analysis and take a look at what happened from a different mindset or perspective. And what I'm trying to do is make this a little bit different is by enlisting uh, your help, your memories, your experiences, your knowledge, and whatever documents you might have. I want you, if you would, to be a part of the conversation, and with your anything you might have to say, please post it. Now, like I said before, I want to do a retrospective on the Water Compact and the new Constitution, and take a look at the matter as it relates to the activities it took to carry out an aggressive attack on our people, on our nation, and our resources. Now, it's all I, as I look back at it, I saw that it illuminates the way we look back at it and analyze this. It illuminates politics, the strategic and the tactical planning that were done. And this is evidenced through the nefarious activities and behavior of those that were involved. Um, Now, keep in mind that earlier I indicated that I wanted to do a little bit deeper analysis. We analyzed the Water Compact and the new Constitution, and we brought out some of the pathological or the pathology of the documents, or the negative effect or the destructive effects it would have had on us. Uh, but this time I want to go a little bit deeper and look at the behaviors of those who were involved in this. And before we get into this, there's two words I want you to keep at the back of your mind during this conversation. And the first one is pantomime. As you all know, a pantomime is basically a behavior without words. And so we want to look back and we want to look at behaviors. Now we know that behaviors can't be erased. So we can look back and say, yeah, these guys behaved in such a manner, or they did this, that, and their behaviors show it. They can't erase those behaviors. So we want to look at what these behaviors, what effect these behaviors had on our people and our situation. Uh, we all know that a mime, you use a mime, they're pictures without words. Uh, they use facial expressions and body gestures and tell a story. But the pantomime that I want to use for our purposes are behaviors that are subconscious, behaviors that they didn't understand that they didn't realize they were telling on themselves. Some behaviors you can tell on yourself with your behavior. Now, when my one of my girls was a little girl, during a birthday party, she was going to have a birthday party. She came down the hall in her little pink little dress, and she was all dressed up and smiling. And I told her, I said, did you get into your birthday cake? And she put her hands behind her back and she swung kind of side to side with a little cute little smile on her face. And she said, no. But the cake on her face and her hands kind of gave that away. But but the part that I wanted to focus on was that her behavior of swinging back and forth became a pantomime. Every time that, as for a while there, when she would be caught in a lie, you could always tell she was lying because she used the same behavior. And the same goes with, say, an alcoholic who tries to say that they're not drinking and says, I've only had a couple of beers. Now, you get a policeman that comes up and he goes through this all the time. He goes through, and when he pulls you out of a car, you might tell him, "Well, I haven't had a drink." Okay, so what he does is he pulls you out of the car and makes you stand there. And what does he do? He checks out your behavior. He looks at your behavior and he tells whether you're lying or not through that behavior. So your behaviors can tell on you. And so I want to go back and look at the behaviors of our council. It might be, say, the ghost of Christmas past or whatever, but it's the ghost of compact past. I want to take a look at the behaviors that they must have had to be involved in order to bring this thing out and make it happen. Because I want to point out that all behaviors do have an effect. Okay, the second word I want you to keep in the back of your mind is pathology, the condition or process of a disease. You might say it's the since ology in English, the word ology means the study of, and you put pathology, it's the study of pathogens. And a pathogen is something that is in the system that works to destroy the health of the host in which it lives until the death of the host occurs. Let me say that again. A pathogen is something in the system that works to destroy the health of the host in which it lives until death of the host. So we want to take a look at the pathological behaviors that took place during these past two documents that we've just gone through, the Water Compact and the new Constitution. Now, people are going to say, well, wait a minute, you can't use the new Constitution because it was defeated. But that's not true. There's a story to be told. Even though the new Constitution is dead, we can analyze the corpse. We can look at it and see. And we've already done that and analyzed the new Constitution and brought out all the pathological effects. But now we want to take a little bit deeper look, and we want to look at the pathology of the behaviors that were involved. So when we look at everything that from a back perspective, a retrospective perspective, and we're looking at things as they've already happened, we can see the enormity of what was going on, the enormity of the Water Compact. We think it was just a local thing. This had wide implications. This was a national thing that had brought national implications because it said a lot to people how the Blackfeet handled their water. So the enormity of the scope of this, once you realize it, then how big it was, then we conclude that there were major players involved. And as we consider both documents, we got to remember that there were major players involved. There was Congress through the McCarran Amendment, and from then on, we have the Department of Interior were involved, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the state of Montana, at least 2 governors and 3 senators. We have the Bureau of Reclamation and all the subcommittees, both federal and state. We have the Montana State Water Court, and of course we have the Blackfeet Council, and the major players being Old Person and Sassy Running Crane, Barnes, McKay, Running Wolf, and let's not forget Auger and some of that previous council. And the last thing we had is the constitutional committees. And then we had the private business deals that were going on behind the scenes in the dark or behind closed doors. And then we had this woman who claims to be a water lawyer. Now, one thing that they're going to tell us is that they had open meetings and that all of these, there was nothing done in secret. These are all open meetings and they were all public meetings. But I want you to remember the one thing about this is that there are requirements, or what I call requirements of process. One of the requirements of the process was that you have to educate the public. So we look back at the behavior of the education, and we can see that it was basically the same thing over and over and over. They didn't allow for questions, a lot of questions, um, and it wasn't a very good public education at all. So what I compare that to is like an iceberg. Now, when you see an iceberg, you only see the top of the iceberg. You even put a piece of ice in a cup of pop or a cup of water. Just the tip of the iceberg, just the tip of the ice comes out of the water. The bulk of it stays in the water. So when it comes to public education, what they educated us on was the part they wanted us to see. There was a lot of it that we didn't see because we can look at it now from the receiving end and say what we were harmed in this. We were actually harmed in this. So we were on the receiving end, and that makes it a hostile uh, encounter. So when you look at the enormity of this thing, of the water compact and the new constitution, we can almost say that there had to be and how the negative effects of these two documents would have impacted us and are impacting us, then you can say that there had to be collusion. For the water compact became the settlement act. We all voted on the water compact. We did not vote on the settlement act, but it came back as the settlement act. Now, what shows that there was collusion was that the settlement act was uh, already put together by Congress. They never put the settlement act after we voted on it. It was all ready to go, and our council knew about it. Our council knew that it was we were settling a lot of our claims that we never voted on. So there was a sleight of hand there, and there had to be some sort of pre-knowledge that this was going to happen, because the fact is that the council never what didn't take the council by surprise. Not only did it not take them by surprise, but they never said anything about it. They never said, "Hey, wait a minute, we never voted on this. The people never voted on this." Instead, they certified it. They certified the settlement act. It shows collusion. Okay, there was no education on it when it came back as the settlement act. There was no education on it. In fact, we were told that the Congress just changed the name. And the package that we saw, the size of that package for anybody who saw it, you've got to be you got to have a fine. You got to look at it with some major magnifying glasses, because this is completely. It was small. It was about a 4x6, and it was not. It was not readable. So that's how they marketed it to us in a very small, not even a brochure, but a 4x5 or a 4x6 at the center of some page. That was the settlement act, and they expected us to go through it and read it, and there was no time for comments on it. They didn't allow us any time. We voted on it thinking that the people that voted for it were thinking that they were voted for the water compact, and in reality it was not. So there has to be some kind of a collusion there because of the bad effects that it has. Now, the secret collusion, of course, is secret agreements for deceitful purposes, or to deceive people, or a secret agreement to defraud the people of some for these purposes. You have to have knowledge, complicity, agreement, and consent. The Water Compact came back as a settlement act. That shows deceitfulness. That shows that it was fraudulent. They had the knowledge because they didn't speak up against it, and that shows that they had the knowledge of it before. It shows that they were complicit. It showed that they agreement to it and they consented to it. So as far as I'm concerned, this pathological behavior, this collusion, uh, the council is guilty for, because there was no education on it at all, and there was no no call to declare for clarification on it or to ask why or to oppose it or anything. Our council didn't do anything. So that to me shows complete collusion. Now, when you agree to these secret agreements and you consent to it, it means that you agreed to perform together with those that you colluded with an illegal, wrongful, or subversive act. Now, this behavior of conspiracy uh, is all you're doing. First, in collusion, you're agreeing to do something for fraudulent or deceitful purposes. In conspiracy, you're agreeing to perform, to become active together with those that you conspired with to actually fulfill what that agreement calls for. So we know the compact, the water compact, was illegal because it didn't have the required votes that it was required for. We know it was wrongful, but was it subversive? So let's take a look at that word subversive. And we can look at that as another pathogen. The subversion is to bring to destruction or ruin. Okay? Now, I want to talk a little bit about rocket science, although I don't know anything about rocket science, but I put that word there just so that I would remember that I wanted you to think in your mind and picture two rockets, two missiles that were shot at us, and both they were hostile rockets or hostile missiles that were shot at us from the United States government. One of these missiles hit us. It damaged our water rights. It took away our water rights. It damaged our Winters Doctrine. It damaged our paramount rights, our prior and paramount rights. It did a lot of damage on our water. That was specifically shot at us for that purpose. The other rocket that came from the United States government came down through the college that when they I can't remember what they call it offhand right now, but it was shot at us in the form of a nucleus through the Harvard school. Okay, it'll come down through them. Now, I can't say this for sure, but knowing the way colleges work, though the college economic model was a result, I think, of a federal loan or a federal grant that had this little bit of deceitfulness in it that was designed to help Indians with their economic growth. But it turned out it was completely subversive. So these two were shot at us. These two missiles were shot at us from the United States government. Now, one of them landed. That was the water compact missile. It landed, and it did damage. The other one, the new Constitution, that was averted. But if it would have landed, we have to look at what would happen if it would have landed. It would have destroyed our water. I mean, it would have destroyed our water in the long run, but it would have destroyed our government, and it would have destroyed our savings clause, which is our corporate charter. So it would have brought destruction. And not only that, but if it was implemented, it opened up a door for other people to come in and become citizens, and that those citizens would eventually become government employees or run parts of our government or be elected to our government, which means that we would eventually be run by the white people. And so we would eventually be put down in the corner and become non existent after a while, which means that the new Constitution was actually a termination policy. It was an actual policy to terminate us. So these two hostile acts were sent to us by the United States government, but be assured of one thing, that they were delivered to us. They were delivered to us by our own councilmen. These hostile weapons were delivered to us by our own council. Another part of subversion is something that brings about an overthrow. an act or instance of subverting or overthrowing a government or an institution. Now, what we already saw the destruction and the ruin of those two missiles. But was this intended as an overthrow? Okay, when we talk about overthrowing, we're talking about sedition, the inciting rebellion, or using language to incite rebellion. Now, we think back at their behavior. I mean, I'm not going to say it, but you look back yourself. All the things that they told us, all the things that they said that we were that we needed. This was kind of ingenious in a way, because what they did is they said, if we don't vote on this water, if we then we're in danger of losing it. And so, in order not to lose our water and to get it all, we had to enter into this compact. So the people voted against an idea. They were afraid of an idea. It wasn't even a real threat. Because when you think about it, the United States government had control of our water. And if they are able to lose in a court of law the things that they said that they could keep safe for us, then that puts them in jeopardy around the world of letting people know that they can't go by their own word. So they had to fight for us and our water. They had that not the option, but they had that responsibility, and they had to take it seriously, because if they lost, it's sending a message around the world. So when they tell us that the water compact, that we were in danger of losing our water, and that on the other hand we were going to gain all of our water. So it was kind of double thing there. Um, but the language they used was to incite fear in the people, that we were going to, in some case, that if we didn't go do the compact, we would lose our water. But they also said that if by going through the compact, we would gain water. So they were citing rebellion against our water rights, because either way, we gave up the end result was that we gave up our water rights. So they incited the rebellion. They brought the people up with their language, and made them afraid that they might lose their water, and then they brought it to the act of rebellion itself. First, they incited the rebellion, and then they acted on the rebellion. Now, the rebellion in this case was just voting. They brought it to a vote. They brought a whole portion of our society to a vote. Understand that. They did it through sedition. They did it through bad mouthing our Constitution, and they did it by bad mouthing our water rights. So they, as part of this collusion, were speaking out for the water compact and the new Constitution. But the insurrection still goes on. They're still rebelling. They're still revolting against our Constitution. They've never gone for it. They remember the words they spoke. Our Constitution is 70 years old. It doesn't work. It's out of date. It needs all this. It needs to be fixed. We need to work on it. It's a bad document. They said all these negative things on it, so we would want to vote on a new Constitution. But remember something, people. The original resolution did not call for a new constitution. It called for a separation in powers. What did we get? We got an attempt to take over our government with a new constitution, to get rid of our savings clause, or our corporate charter, and to get all of our resources away from the government, out of protection of the government. So yeah, there was sedition, there was rebellion, and the insurrection continues. And the tactics they use, the behaviors they use language itself, which is kind of Orwellian, because in Orwellian doublespeak, you say one thing, but it actually means another. So there was a lot of that being used. So that language was used to deceive us, to trick us. There was pretense involved. They pretended that we were voting on a constitution that was going to make us better when it would have actually destroyed us, and they brought us. The pretense was that we were going to save our water and on all this by voting for the water rights. These were pretenses because it came back as a settlement act. It took away from us. We were harmed by it. These were hostile acts. They lied to us. They used a ruse, a sleight of hand when it went off as a water compact and came back as a settlement. That's sleight of hand. That's a ruse. They used deception and deceit, which took cunning and craft. These behaviors are all pathological behaviors. And this is why we had a pathological document. And there had to be sabotage. Now, put your mind into me and tell me with mine and say what was destroyed, what was damaged or disrupted, and what was it done by secret means. Like I said in the iceberg effect, we only were able to see part of it. But now that the missile has landed, we can see it in its entirety. And it was meant. They did a lot of that. They've had to do a lot of that in secret, even though they say there was public meetings. But at those meetings, uh, the tribal council knew that it was going to come back as a settlement act, and they never educated on us. That is collusion. That, to me, my friends, brings up the word treason, a betrayal of allegiance towards one's own country, committing hostile acts against it or aiding its enemies in committing such acts. Those two missiles that hit us, one was averted, one hit us. But these were considered, in my mind, they're considered hostile acts because we were harmed. They told us we were saving ourselves. And in reality, we were harmed. We were able to divert the one that would actually have destroyed us, the new Constitution, but now we're suffering from the one that landed, and that's the Water Settlement Act, which was done illegally, and there were some problems with that, so we're still fighting on that. So stay with us on that. A second part of treason is the betrayal of someone's trust or confidence. Um, Usually shows disloyalty, of course, betrayal, duplicity as part of it, which is deceit and deception. So, can you look back and say, based on these behaviors that we talked about, was there a betrayal of allegiance? Did they betray their allegiance to their oath of office? Did they betray their allegiance or to their trust and confidence of the people? Were they disloyal? And did they use deceit and deception? So treason is betrayal of allegiance and betrayal of trust and confidence. Now we can encapsulate these words in the word traitor. One who betrays one's own country, a cause, or a trust, especially one who commits treason. Now, one who commits treason betrays people. They betray the trust of the people. They betray their allegiance. But now, let me also say this: not only did they betray their allegiance to the Blackfeet tribe, but they proclaimed their allegiance to the United States government. There was a complete reversal there. So it's not only just betraying your allegiance; it's by alleging your or allegiance by joining with those that you're colluding with. You become part of that group. So they completely not only betrayed us, but they joined the other side. So they betrayed both they used sabotage. They tried to do some of these things secretly. They used pretense, lies. They used all these things. They were sedition, rebellion, subversion, conspiracy, collusion. These are all pathological behaviors, people. This is what the behaviors they used to pass the compact. Yes, they are traitors. And it reveals an attempt to psychologically program through deceptive means, the public into believing propaganda in order to sway public opinion and overthrow the government. Deception by trickery. The other one, the last ones I want to point out is that on their behaviors, we saw them oppression. We saw them oppress those that were standing against it, those that were speaking out, those that represented the other side. Okay, they had a right to speak out. They had the right to voice their opinions, but the oppression was, they even got down to how pathetic they were to even take the toilets of those that were setting up a camp. Honestly, this is what the BIA, see, this shows more collusion, the BIA and the tribe. So they oppressed the people. They used all kinds of language to oppress those that were speaking out. Now, I don't have to say and prove these things. Just think back yourself. Think of all the times Barnes spoke out and McKay spoke out and different ones spoke out and said that we were this and we were that. They were pointing into us and saying and accusing us of doing the things that they were doing themselves. This is called Trumpism. This is what Trump does. He does things and then accuses everybody else of doing it. So they used oppression on us. Yes, they are oppressive, and they that because of that oppression, the people that work for the tribe were forced to repress their own feelings, their own thoughts, and because their jobs were in danger. Now, as far as I know, they never were actually threatened about losing their job, but the understanding was certainly portrayed. So when they use oppression to repress them, so that the people repress their feelings, that is. So what am I saying? Okay, I'm saying that I'm a little bit mad, but I'm saying that all these activities together paint a picture, a dark, scary picture of pathological behaviors. Let me say that again. All these activities together paint a picture, a dark, scary picture of pathological behaviors. We see an attempt by our own government officials to subvert our water rights, our prior and paramount rights, and nullify the Winters Doctrine. We see an attempt to destroy our corporate charter and overthrow our government. We see our leaders use nefarious activities to bring these fraudulent plans to completion, making them complicit in these plans. And don't underestimate that word nefarious, it means evil. We see that although defeated, the revolt continues. They continue to go outside of their constitution. They're continuing to do things outside of the realm of their scope of things, and they're continuing this revolt against our constitution. We see our elected officials, government officials, engaged in deception, subversion, and treason. We've seen that. I've just explained it to you. We just saw it. And if you look back, you can see it yourself. I just bring these things to light. As a Christian, it is our job to shine a light into dark places and to shine a light on things. And that's what I've tried to do. I've tried to shine a light onto these things. So we saw our government officials incite large portions of our society to rebel against our Constitution and corporate charter, which is sedition, and engage them in rebellion through the act of voting. Then, skewing the results of the votes in favor of passing the compact. That should be a crime. Isn't that a crime? Somebody tell me something. That to me should be a crime. We see those who are doing this still in control. They still have control of the reins. They still have control of the money. They still have control of the resources. They still have all this control, and we can see the nefarious activities that they're engaged in, these pathological activities that they're willing to engage in. We see those who tried to overthrow our government, destroy our saving clause or our corporate charter, and take over our resources, steal away our water, while silencing the people's voice. We see these people walk away with not having to answer for these treasonous crimes. My question to you is, why is there a whisper when there should be a roar? I would feel sad too. Now, our Constitution says that we can remove from office for cause. Now, I'm asking you this very serious question. Do you see cause? This pathology of behaviors was evident on paper when it was the new Constitution. We brought all those things out. But all these behaviors shows the mindset of those that are doing this. It shows the mindset of Auger, of Earl person who was caught lying. And Sassy Running Crane, who gave the Birch Creek Agreement, who Earl wasn't even out of the building when he signed it, so that was illegal. We see all these activities that these councils are engaged in, and none of these activities, people, are to help us. How do I know that? Because look how it happened when the missiles landed. Our water rights are in question now. We've lost a lot of our. They say, okay, well, the water compact gives us back. I've read part of that. The part that I can remember right offhand is in the Settlement Act. They gave us 10 years from the signing of that act to put a, a power generating site on the Milk River. 10 years. Now everybody knows that it takes at least 7 years to get the application approved. Then we've got to go through the Bureau of Reclamation, and we've got to do all kinds of environmental impact studies and all kinds of other things. It takes a long time to get these things going. So they know it would take over 10 years. So within the 10 years is over, another company can come in and they can put an energy program or on that site also. So they're giving themselves the right to develop energy on the Milk River, because the 10-year span that we're going to do, we have to come up with the money. See, the government officials are supposed to give us part of that money, but you don't hear any of that in Trump's plan. They're not giving us any money. So this is all a fraud and a crook, and they're going to take our water away eventually. So we've got to stand up and fight now, people. So I put this on this in this format because you can download it and look at some of these things. And as you look at it, go through it again and look at it and put what you can prove, what you know, and what behaviors you saw, what meetings that you heard of. Put all these things down and put them on Copy Times, so we can collect all these things and prove that our council are not working with us, that they're traitors, they committed treason, and they should be all put out of office. Well, I hope I gave you something to think about, because this is serious, very serious, and these same people are still in control of our money. They're still in control of their decision making. There's a lot of things going on that are secretive that we don't know anything about. We see trucks moving back and forth. We know the state of Montana must be up there moving things around. And who's up there watching for our side? So I think we need to get rid of these government officials. They're selling us out, and I'm really calling for an emergency. I'm really saying this is an emergency, and to the people. And I'm saying we can't wait till June, because by June they might actually destroy us. So take a moment, think about these things, take it really serious, and then put your thoughts on Copy Times, and maybe we can start from there and get some things going. So I want to thank you for listening to me, and I hope that your day goes well, and God bless you.